My Lords, I too want to thank the Most Reverend Primate for giving us this opportunity today to discuss this profoundly important human right. In doing so, I declare an interest as set out in the Register, but I want to emphasise that I'm speaking from a personal perspective. And I'll draw on my own background and experiences as they profoundly shape my view of why this human right, the right to express yourself freely, is so important to those of us who care about a freedom-loving democracy. As I grew up, I lived in several countries. What united them was that they were all authoritarian and all socially conservative. All were politically repressive in varying degrees. But the combination of the two, if you were a woman, was at minimum stultifying and at its worst, leading to a life lived in social and political ostracism. That loss of voice eventually snuffed out your fundamental autonomy. You retreated into family, religious sect, and tribe with a narrow space to express yourself that got narrower and narrower. For those of us who've been lucky enough to make it to democracies, and I think I speak for many who arrive on our shores today, the allure of a democracy is palpable. It has meaning beyond knowing that you can vote. It's expressed most tangibly in the ability to think what one wants and to express that as one wishes, with bounds, but with few bounds. The two, the freedom to think and free speech, are inexorably bound together. One can't have one in the absence of the other. So for me, a thriving democracy is where contestation is rife and where vigorous debate allows us to change our minds, to be open to contrary perspectives, and indeed to disagree well, as Archbishop Welby's reminded us. The role of the opposition in a democracy's constitution reflects that public disagreement. And the reason we elevate and provide for this formal role of an opposition is precisely because we accept that others have the right to hold a different view to ours. Periodically, we accept that their views must hold, and we peaceably move over to allow them to rule over us. That is the compact, and we all observe it. But we know that this space is being eroded, and its erosion is most dangerous in institutions which are integral to our values. I speak of education for young people and universities. In both spheres of education, there appears a diminution of the value of opposing thought and an elevation of that of respect and tolerance. A perspective where individual safety is elevated as the principal objective, and where harm is alleged by exposure to ideas that might provoke. Let me be clear, I don't for a second believe that respect and tolerance aren't important values. Indeed, without them, in this increasingly multi-ethnic and multicultural society, we couldn't rub along together in coexistence, so they rarely matter. My point is that they are values that only command our loyalty because they follow from the freedom of speech and thought that is intrinsic to a democracy. The fact that we know we can disagree and express that disagreement publicly allows us to put up with the views and actions of those that offend us. When we don't like what is said, we can say so and be listened to. But we saw in Sussex University, in the case of Professor Kathleen Stock and numerous others, that we're in danger of a situation where tolerance for one perspective only applies when it is our perspective. Join my tribe or lose your job. She lost her job, supposedly because she made some people feel unsafe. Could it be that when young people open themselves up to these other contrary ideas, which may be uncomfortable to accept, that universities are actually playing an important role beyond knowledge? They're building our resilience to prepare us for later life when we all will have to leave our tribe and rub along, even tolerate those who don't hold our views. And as a minority, an ethnic and religious minority, I can testify this is especially true for us. If universities become primarily the spaces where, beyond a formal curriculum, in all other activities, groupthink prevails, then eventually all are diminished, not only the academy itself. One only has to look at the current issue of Prospect magazine, and the Noble Lord Griffiths of Berryport referred to Alan Rusbridger, its new editor. Prospect magazine this month has an article about freedom of expression, and it has a sorry list of academics, journalists, and others who've been subjected to sanctions in the United Kingdom and the UK. Both societies, one would have thought, who pride themselves on freedom. So I close, my lords, with a simple thought, that in order to uphold our freedoms, we accept the proposition that the struggle to keep them is one for every single one of us, every day, every year, as we go forward. Today is the day the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was adopted in Paris, 73 years ago. It has served us well, as it enshrined for the first time freedom of expression in international law. Today is a good day to be celebrating that.
Yeah.